This is going to be the most difficult ranking video I've ever made. So I almost went the tier ranking route with this one, but I'm gonna be honest, it kind of felt like a cop-out for this video. And I intend on making this a ranked list on my Letterboxd anyway, so I'm going to have to rank them at some point. Just keep in mind that the difference between most of these films is like a hairline fracture. It is so small. That, and just keep in mind that somebody's got to be last. That doesn't mean I hate the movie though. And when I think about this entire list, like, I don't hate any of these movies, and that's being for real. And just to save a little bit of time, I'm not going to be summarizing the movies. Y'all can Google it anyway. You're watching this on a phone or on your laptop or computer or something, so you're on the internet. So it's not necessary for me to do that for this video, I don't think, just because there's so many movies I gotta get through. And also really quick, before I start this, there are two movies that I wanted to mention that I saw on a lot of people's A24 horror lists. Not everybody's, but it was enough that I feel like I have to mention why I'm not going to be including them on mine, and that is Under the Skin and Beau is Afraid. Just for me, I don't consider either of those movies predominantly horror movies. I feel like if they had to be boxed into one genre, they fit better into other categories with horror elements in each. So I've seen both. You can check out my rating of either of those on my Letterboxd. I'm just not going to include them on this list, which I'm keeping to A24 horror movies, as the title says. All right, so I can't put this off any longer. Let's get right into it. Fuck. All right, shit. I'm going to put The Lighthouse at the bottom of my list. This one just didn't leave as strong an impression on me as the rest of the movies that I'm going to talk about. And I've only seen it once, and truth be told, I barely got it that one time I watched it. But yet I didn't really want to rewatch it to try and get it. So yeah, I feel like that says it all. All right, so next, right above last place, is going to be It Comes at Night. This one is the kind of slow, creepy burn that I like, but I sometimes forget this movie exists, you know? I don't think it's super memorable. It also didn't leave as strong an impression on me as the rest of the movies here. And as I was making this list, I felt that, and I feel like I kind of take a different approach to almost every ranking that I do, depending on what the theme of that ranking is. And what I found helped me rank these and put these in some sort of numerical order was going off of how much of an impression they left on me. And that ended up being like one of my biggest deciding factors on where all of these are placed. And from here, it gets more difficult. All right, so next I'm gonna go with The Front Room. I was able to rewatch this one recently for Does This Offend You? This month it was on Emma's channel. I'll link the video up here, whichever side, I never know. And knowing full well what the tone was going in definitely helped for this second watch. I think the movie introduces some interesting themes, but it doesn't deliver on some of them. I think Kathryn Hunter is great in it and so funny, and it's awesome to see Brandy in a horror movie again. So while I had a better time with this movie on my second watch, still don't quite like it as much as everything else that I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to go with The Green Room next. And I haven't watched this one in a little bit. I do remember liking it a lot. The gore was definitely a standout in this movie. It's shocking and intense in a way that makes you squirm. And the violence and implication of violence is great in this, all the while made super scary in a very realistic way as it sets this punk band against a gang of skinheads. That's fucking terrifying. I definitely need to rewatch this one soon. Rewatching the trailer, you know, like for clips of this really made me want to rewatch it. Okay, so after The Green Room, I think has to be Heretic. I'll link my review of this one as I just did a video on it recently if you want to hear my full thoughts. I liked the movie well enough. The performances were good. Hugh Grant was super creepy and the concept is super creepy and something topical, I think, at least in the US, where religious ideology has fully just become something terrifying and oppressive. Like, well, even more so than previous centuries. I didn't feel like we really like quite stuck the landing in the end, but it was still a fun watch. And honestly, and it's not that like A24, I guess, is necessarily known for having 100% disturbing films. It's not like a thing that they advertise, but I feel like a lot of their movies tend to be quite intense, and this one felt pretty tame in comparison. All right, Frick. Okay, Pearl. Pearl is next. Out of this trilogy, I think I like Pearl the least, which might get me hate. I don't know how you guys are gonna react to that in the comments. That's sometimes the case with prequels. We kind of sort of know where they're gonna end up since we've already seen the movie that comes after. But Mia Goth was truly incredible as Pearl, and she really embodies crazy in a way that makes you unable to look away from her, and she's got to get her flowers for that. And I think I'm gonna just put the whole trilogy together on this list. So second for me in this trilogy and the next on this list is Maxine. It's got all the vibes and some really great moments. Like, I didn't realize I needed to see Maxine just totally doing her damn thing until I actually got to see it. That alley scene with like the Buster Keaton guy, that scene where she just like punches the shit out of Kevin Bacon. Goddamn. I would have rated this one higher, but I felt like the reveal of the big bad was really not a reveal at all. We knew who it was gonna be the entire time. And as a climax to this series, it just kind of fell flat for me at the end. So that would leave X next on my list, and just if we're talking about that trilogy together, it's my favorite of the three. It was such a fresh slasher at the time it was released, definitely harkening back to some classics in a cool way, and it absolutely delivered on the gore and the guts and all the nasty bits. Plus the cast is just awesome. Jenna Ortega, Brittany Snow, Kid Cudi, utterly iconic. And this is where it gets even more difficult. Talk to Me. I think Talk to Me is next. Just a scary and sad movie. I feel like it's the biggest indication that I'm a Cancer son, that I love scary and disturbing movies that will also make me cry because of just like how emotionally intense they are, or when it comes to horror, a lot of times how they handle grief. That's a pretty common theme. Talk to Me was all the feelings I felt when I lost my mom and all the fear I have of trying to communicate with the dead. It's never a good idea, people. Never a good idea. And just above that, I'm going to put Men. What could be scarier? Honestly, I think the movie does a really good job of embodying how scary men are, just as a concept, if that makes sense. The overwhelming creepiness, the unsettled feeling, the entire movie, but for no particular reason. Like, it's not a slasher movie, it's not a monster movie, it's just men. That's it. Their collective presence in society is scary to anyone who is not a man. And I think it's really effective, actually. I think this movie embodies that quite well, and it still creeps me out when I watch it. It still makes me super uncomfortable. Okay, and then right above that, Saint Maud. Just another super duper unsettling movie, really creepy and sad, but in a different way than something like Talk to Me is sad. Just watching this very troubled woman completely fall apart. I also like the slight touch of the supernatural, where you can't really tell until the very end if it's actually supernatural or just a figment of Maud's psyche. And as much as I really love open-ended movies, the definitive slap in the face ending right at that like last split second was iconic as fuck. I remember the first time I saw the movie and I just sat through the entire credits with my jaw on the floor. I literally could not move. And then I like rewound it back and watched it a million times to make sure I saw what I saw. All right, this next section is what I call extra hard mode, because these ones took me a ridiculously long time to figure out the order I was gonna put them in. Honestly, kind of just consider all of these like number one. So I'm gonna go with Bodies, Bodies, Bodies next. Honestly, what an incredible slasher movie. So much fun, so many just utterly iconic moments and lines. And the absurdity of the reveal at the end of the movie, so simple, yet completely throws into chaos all of the like other chaos that just happened. The only reason that it isn't higher on the list is because the ending reveal really only hits that first time, and it doesn't necessarily add a lot of rewatch value after the fact. But it's still so fun to watch, so it doesn't completely lose all of its rewatch value. Next, I think, has to be Tusk. I still love telling people about this movie and watching them lose faith in my mental capacities just ever so slightly. Such a wild ride of a movie, a perfect one to show someone who has no idea about it, which is a thing I love doing. It's as close as one can get to watching a movie again for the first time, until somebody invents like a neuralizer or something. In which case, this is gonna be one of the first movies that I erase from my memory so I can watch it again for the first time. All right, next on my ranking, we're getting very close to the top now, is Midsummer. Another great, very disturbing movie about grief, but also just an incredible folk horror movie as well. I love how bright the movie is. Pretty much every disturbing thing in this movie happens in broad daylight, which makes it even more disturbing. Like, you always like to think that the scary things only happen at night, and I love when horror movies play with that preconceived notion. This one also just holds a special place in my heart because I made a guy I used to work with watch it. And then he came back to work the next day after watching it and was so mad at me because of the ending. It cracked me the fuck up. All right, we're almost to the top 3, but in the number 4 spot, very, very close, is I Saw the TV Glow. What an incredible, heart-wrenching movie. I never expected to be confronted with this idea of, like, what if you never came out? Here's how miserable your life would be if you were just not living in a way that was true to yourself. I was completely floored, and I just sat there through the credits crying big, fat, ugly tears. And I've never had such a movie make me feel so happy to be me and to have a community that accepts me. And I feel like this movie has to be near the top for that alone, which means it's top 3 time. So coming in at number 3 for me is Hereditary. Such a jaw-dropping movie. I remember the trailer being so well done. We talk about this a lot on this channel. It kept the right part secret, and I loved the theater experience because of this trailer, because everyone was completely shocked when Charlie is killed. I don't think anyone moved or breathed for that entire sequence because no one had any idea what the fuck was gonna happen next. We all thought we knew what the movie was about, and we had just found out we were completely wrong. I remember seeing it with my mom and my brother as well, which was fun because that's rare. My mom was usually way too scared by modern horror movies, but she ended up loving this one, which was pretty crazy. But it makes sense though, because like Toni Collette's performance is fucking iconic and incredible. All right, in second place for me, The Blackcoat's Daughter. This is the movie I recommend to non-horror people and then fully expect, actually I like anticipate them coming back and telling me I need therapy. It's so bleak and dark, and this really shouldn't be anyone's favorite. There's not an ounce of joy in this movie, but man, does it stick with you. I think about specific scenes from this movie often, like probably at least 2 or 3 times a month. If I just ballpark, if I just had to guess. And most of the movies on this list like reached me emotionally and affected me emotionally in some way, but none of them had quite the effect that Blackcoat's Daughter does. And that leaves The Witch as my favorite A24 horror movie. Probably not a surprise to anybody who's been on this channel for a little bit. I think this also might be my first A24 film. I remember I was working at an AMC theaters at the time it came out, and I went on my day off and saw it, you know, for free as my employee perk, and I didn't really know what I was getting into. I just thought the vibes looked cool. Like, and all I really remember from the experience was not being able to look away from the screen, but at the same time really wanting to look away because everything just felt so sinister and uncomfortable. You just knew something horrible was coming. And so I ended up loving it. I even wrote about it for my final paper for my master's in film studies. I wrote a whole section on Thomason's hair, the state of her hair in the movie, and how it changes and how that reflects her feelings about her family and vice versa throughout the movie. Pretty proud of that. And that is my favorite A24 horror movie for now. So this ranking, as you are watching this video right now, is now a list on my Letterboxd, so you can see them all there. And now I have that so I can add it and move things around as I see fit, as more A24 horror movies come out. So now it's your turn. Let me know in the comments what your top 5 favorite A24 horror movies are. If you're feeling super ambitious, little challenge, list all of the A24 horror movies you've seen in order of your preference. I challenge you. If you made it this far into the video, I love you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon with a new video. Until then, stay strange. Bye.